Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And Merry Christmas to you all. This being the 10th day of Christmas, having to do with 10 Lords a-leaping in that old song, whatever that means. The Christmas season, of course, ends on this coming Wednesday with the Feast of the Epiphany, which we will celebrate next Sunday, wise men and all. 2016. You know what? That means I'm going to be 61 next month. It's really hard for me to believe that, especially given that it seemed like I turned 60 about 15 minutes ago. Time flies when you're having fun, huh? I don't feel 61 except in my joints and in my girth. At any rate, it is New Year's resolution time again, right? And I would be remiss if I did not yet again recommend to you those things which tend to engender spiritual growth. Here they are: contemplative and meditative prayer, care of and charity for the poor, compassion for the displaced, the homeless, the elderly, and those who are different from us, love of neighbor. If you wish to grow spiritually, you must do at least some of those things. Of course, whenever the subject of spiritual growth comes up, the question invariably arises, well, how do I know how I'm doing? Right? How do I know if I'm making progress spiritually? It's a pretty good question. One really good rule of thumb is this: the more I get offended, the more work I have to do. For you see, my God self, my true self, who I am in God, is unoffendable, indestructible, and thus, the more offense I take, the less I am in my God self. Meditate on that for the rest of your life, right? In addition to that, there's been going around Facebook a list over the last couple of weeks or so, which I think might be helpful. Ironically, it is called the 12 symptoms of spiritual awakening. Here they are. Number 1, an increased tendency to let things happen rather than to make things happen. Number 2, frequent attacks of smiling. You ever notice how few people smile? Yeah, just go to Walmart and smile and see what happens, right? 3, feelings of being connected with others and with nature, with creation. 4, frequent, overwhelming episodes of appreciation and gratitude. You get those? I get those. Number 5, a tendency to think and act spontaneously rather than from fears based upon past experience. That's a hard one for me, I know. Number 6, an unmistakable ability to enjoy each moment. I think I'm getting better at that. Number 7, a loss of ability to worry. Number 8, a loss of interest in conflict. Number 9, a loss of interest in interpreting the actions of other people. Number 10, a loss of interest in judging other people. Number 11, a loss of interest in judging myself. And number 12, gaining the ability to love without expecting anything in return. There you have it. The 12 symptoms of spiritual awakening. Food for thought, at least, I hope. Our gospel for this morning marks the end of the first section of Luke's gospel, where we have been for the last couple of weeks. And it is, in fact, the only story that we have from Jesus' childhood. It's the only one from the canonical Gospels. It is the story in which the 12-year-old Jesus, having journeyed to Jerusalem with his family, gets left behind when they leave the city for the return trip. And 3 days later, they find Jesus in the temple in Jerusalem, sitting among the teachers and asking them questions, at which point we are told that all who heard Jesus were amazed at his understanding and his answers. Subsequently, when Jesus is castigated by his mother for his behavior, and he really is, He responds with the famous line, "Why are you searching for me? Do you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" Or in the old translation it said, "About my Father's business," right? 12-year-old kid, gone from his parents for 3 days. Think about this, right? With no apparent concern on his part. At the very least, we might say that Jesus was most thoughtful and most precocious, right? And then the passage ends with this. And Jesus increased in wisdom. He increased in wisdom and in years and in divine and human favor. That's what it says. It says he increased in wisdom. But in fact, we don't know how he did it because of the simple fact that we don't see Jesus again for 18 years. Sometimes referred to as the missing years. From age 12 to age 30. We just don't know what happened. It's one of the great mysteries of the New Testament. How can such a large chunk of the life of perhaps the most important person who ever lived just be missing? How can that be? Moreover, what happened during those years? The answer is we simply don't know. There's not a shred of evidence. Not in the Bible, not outside the Bible. But it certainly hasn't stopped people from speculating. Y'all know how much I like people to speculate. For example, Arthurian legend, that is the legend of King Arthur, places Jesus in Great Britain during this time. Some have speculated that he traveled the Silk Road, the great caravan route that went through Galilee to the Far East, to India or Tibet. Others believe that Jesus spent much of that time with the Essene community around the Dead Sea, a Jewish ascetic community. And I'm not making this up. I saw something just last week on the History Channel that suggested that Jesus and several disciples traveled to Spain to try to recover one of the lost tribes of Israel. If you can believe that. They were serious. No kidding. Now, though I have the heart of a romantic, I must admit to you that this is all nothing more than idle speculation. We don't know what happened during that time, and the Bible doesn't say. The Orthodox position, it's not biblical, but the Orthodox position has always been that Jesus simply worked during that time as a carpenter. And yet the question arises, if that is the case, how did he become so wise? How did he become, among other things, one of the great wisdom teachers of all time? It's actually a pretty good question if we would take Jesus seriously. Now, I know what some will say. Dummy, he was wise because he was God, right? And yet, that understanding violates one of the most fundamental doctrines of Christian theology, which is that the divinity of Christ can in no way undermine the humanity. I'm going to say that again because it's so important. The divinity of Christ can in no way undermine the humanity. The young Jesus would have to learn and grow just like that first hymn we just sang. Like any person, right? A very smart person, a very insightful person, a very thoughtful person, but a person nonetheless. Now the Bible is very clear on this point. Y'all, he comes down from heaven. He lays aside his crown, his glory, his divinity. In the words of St. Paul, he does not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but empties himself, taking on the form of a servant, Philippians 2, 5 to 11. You see, here's the deal. Jesus is already fully God. That's not the problem. He must become fully human too, or there's no deal. There's no point. If Jesus doesn't become fully human, he's got nothing to say to us. And Christianity is but a sham. Moreover, if Jesus doesn't become fully human, he can't do what he came to do. He can't be for us the bridge between the human and the divine. He can't be for us the link between heaven and earth. Said differently, he can't show us the way without having traveled it himself, you see. The Bible says that Jesus grew in wisdom. And we don't know how he did it. We just know that he did it. Which is good news for us, because it means that we can do it too. Which is kind of the point. You see, I think we've spent so much time counting on Christ to save us that we have largely ignored our responsibility to follow him in life and in death. And yet that's what we're called to. To grow in wisdom, to die to self. That's it. To grow in wisdom, to die to self. That's what Jesus did. You and I are called to nothing less.